Keep going. No, keep it up. Keep it up. Woo! Oh, where's our thick boy 40 times? That's what I need.
Don't say that again.
These are all skill players. Inequality.
God dang it, Maddie. The NFL Combine will be starting in earnest on Thursday. There's gonna be some fun players to watch starting on Thursday. We'll talk about all those players. We'll talk about some Combine props. Hammy's got some interesting questions for us, but we'll start with some Chiefs rumors. Let's go.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome into a live edition of the KC Laboratory, presented by Emprise Bank. Member FDIC, our tremendous partners in possible here at KC Sports Network. You know we're a live show because we couldn't stop laughing to start the show. I am here with my two dear pals. It is a Matter Day. Wednesdays are Matter Days. I'm Matt Swanson. I'm here with Matt Hamilton and Maddie Lane. Maddie Lane, how are we?
So we're doing pretty good. The combine has started, but the testing starts tomorrow. So starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, I get to sit down and watch a bunch of dudes just run around on a field wearing spandex. So, times have never really been better. This is kind of like the pinnacle of the year, Hamilton.
This is it. This is officially the start of draft season, and I can't wait. I've been, I know you guys have been, grinding tape all year on these prospects. I've been diving in head first over the last couple of days, learning as much as I can, cramming, getting ready, and excited. There's a lot of possibilities for the Chiefs here. A lot of Chiefs news coming out of Combine Week as well. So a lot of exciting stuff to get to.
There is plenty of stuff to get to. Hamilton, are you home or are you in Indianapolis?
I am home.
You're home.
We actually, we have the week off from up in Adams, actually. So, I'll get to enjoy the combine and break it all down Monday.
Let's go. You get to watch the spandex too.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys ever done stuff out at the shrine at the combine?
We haven't. Back in in the Good Morning Football days, we did. Peter was always out at the combine every year. We did some stuff from out there, but with up in Adams, we haven't yet.
Okay, so have you had the St. Elmo's experience though out in Indianapolis?
I have. I was out. My first one was 2014. OBJ and Mike Evans and Clowney and So I got the full experience that year.
Okay, Tucker, did you wind up getting to go to St. Elmo's, or are you going to St. Elmo's, Tucker? He's telling me. I don't even know if he can give me a thumbs up because I can see him in the background or not. No, he's not. Oh, I'm feel bad. He was planning on it. Then he got food poisoning, and then
oh no,
yeah.
Poor
so our guy.
I love how Tucker's battling the internet wars, and you're over here asking him a question while we're live, expecting him to hop on an answer or something. That's my favorite part. It's we're a little late because he's having to hotspot it up so he can get back in here. And you're like, hey Tucker, why don't you jump on here and have this conversation with us?
He was suffering from food poisoning.
Yeah. He can deal with it. But look, we're this is a fun week. This is kind of I would say this is one for me personally. I think this is a massive and kind of final mile marker as far as gaining intel on prospects, right? So I know that there's going to be pro days that are coming up, and there's going to be little pieces of news that pop up here or there. There's going to be some medical stuff that pop up as a result of everything that happens here at the NFL Combine. But this is such a significant kind of final piece to the puzzle when you're talking about evaluating prospects is getting an eye on these guys and seeing how they stack up physically against the rest of the class and the rest of their peers, and getting true testing numbers from these guys to kind of get an idea and gauge, the athletic thresholds and some of the projectability of their athletic profiles. We're really excited to get all that going. That's kind of a final piece for us when we're talking about the KCSN draft guide, which is available for pre-order. If you want 225 write-ups on prospects and how they fit the Chiefs, if you want 300 pages of Chiefs-specific NFL draft content, the link is in the description of this show. And it's a great companion for the draft month and a great companion for draft weekend itself. So, yeah, link in the description of the show. Whether you're listening audio only, it's in there. Watching, it's in there. So, would appreciate you checking that out. But let's get into the show, guys. I think before we get too far into some of the combine stuff, there's been a couple little rumors that have popped up, a couple reports that have popped up with the Chiefs here this the last 24, 36 hours. And, we're getting a few little nuggets here that are of quite of interest, I think, to the Kansas City Chiefs and their outlook and how they're going to shape the roster for 2025. I think we'll start with one of the bigger ones. The Chiefs, according to Nate Taylor, are optimistic that Trey Smith, the standout guard for the Chiefs, there's optimism that the Chiefs will be able to get a 5-year deal done with Trey Smith. Hamilton, what were your initial thoughts when hearing that?
I was a little surprised because so much of the momentum seemed to be that they were going to move on from him or be okay with letting him go. But yeah, I mean, I think this offensive line is of paramount importance to this team, and it's obviously they're still going to need to address the tackle position no matter what they do. But keeping Trey in the mix obviously it would be a big move and help keep some continuity with this offensive line. And it is something, again, we talked about them last week, not, the report that they're not going to franchise tag him. Well, this is the only way that it's financially viable for them was to do a longer term deal and, structure it creatively. And it sounds like there's a possibility they can do that. And I guess the next question is, what does it mean now for, the possibility of bringing back a Nick Bolton or Justin Reed? But yeah, I think getting this offensive line as good as it can possibly be has to be priority number one this offseason. Getting Trey back in the mix would be a big step in the right direction. Obviously, they need to add pieces, but keeping him would be big.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird time of year. We've talked about it, I think, every year. As Brett Veach has spent more time as the GM, he's gotten a lot better. And now those first couple years, he was just kind of saying what he was trying to do or, pointing you in the right direction because he wasn't quite sure on how to, I think, handle the situation of what he was and wasn't supposed to say. He has definitely got better at hiding whatever the Chiefs are trying to do to the point now to where it almost feels like plenty of times he just straight up lies about some of the stuff that he is trying to do. He is purposely going up there and telling you non-truths sometimes. I'm not saying that's what's happening here. I want to preface it with anything you've heard from Andy and Brett Veach this week. Go back to last year, go back to the year before and kind of listen to some of the stuff they've said. Not all of it should be taken for gospel. So yeah, maybe the Chiefs are interested in signing Trey Smith to a 5-year deal. If that 5-year deal is the average offensive guard contract over 5 years in the NFL, that might be the truth. But are they really trying to offer a deal at the top end of the market over 5 years? I don't know. I do have a hard time believing that looking at the entire roster. But if it is true, let's live in the world where this is true, that this is something they're actively trying to do. I think what that would tell me is that they don't feel great about their ability to find a left tackle this offseason going into next year. And they're trying to keep as much of the good parts of their offensive line together as they can, knowing that there is going to be a weakness at one of the spots. So instead of probably trying to break in a rookie or not a rookie, but a second-year player, a first-time starter at right guard, we'll bring back a guy that we know is good while we know our left tackle is going to be struggling trying to catch up. So if it is true, I would think that they just don't feel great about their ability to get a starting caliber left tackle ready for the start of next season.
And I think these are the little domino. That's a big domino to fall. If Trey Smith is indeed back for the Chiefs, that's a big course set for the entirety of the offseason. And Hamilton, you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but that affects what you're able to do with the remainder of your roster. Are you able to go and invest big in, two of your other key, players on the defensive side of the ball with Bolton and Reed? like that's a big question. That's a big domino that could potentially fall and kind of just change the course of this. Like, and it is interesting. Like when you hear Veach and Andy get up there, like I think there's definitely truth to some of the stuff that they're saying, but there's also like Veach mentioned a couple times like how strong the defensive side of the ball is for this draft, and he's right. But like they're just gonna go take a run. They're gonna take a running back in round one. Like it's like, so, you know what I'm saying? It's like you could see some of these things, like what they say does not always match up on the podium. I don't know if Veach talked too much about Trey and the optimism on the podium necessarily, but that was something that was kind of on the side. But I think there is definitely some like give and take there. I have a hard time believing though that Brett Veach got on the podium and spoke more or less on behalf of Travis Kelce. Because like they were very strongly stating, Veach was very strongly stating that they expected Travis Kelce back for 2025, and that he had basically said that they would have him back in 2025. But what's even more interesting is like, hey, look, like I think there's expectation that they're not going to be adjusting Travis Kelce's contract here in 2025 either. He's going to be playing, I believe, is the highest paid tight end in 2025 in the National Football League. But like two big dominoes could potentially fall. Trey Smith back at Travis Kelce coming back for one last run. What would you think, Hamilton, about Travis Kelce being back in the mix, even at that potentially, top of market price point?
I mean, the price tag is, well, is pretty outrageous, and given the rest of the cap situation. But again, it's tough to work something out when the expectation is probably this is the last year, right? I would think. So if you're going to lower that number, it means adding void years or whatever else to do that, which, pushes the problem down the road a little bit. I don't know. I feel like if he is coming back, you gotta at least do some of that to spread out that impact a little bit, because the cap situation is going to be so tight. It's hard to imagine that he's back without any adjustment. But I know Kelce is not playing at the level that he was in the past. But he is still important to this offense. We've still seen him have some big games. I think, it is still a plus to have him back there, but you would hope they can do something to reduce that cap hit for this year.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine if he is back, there is some adjustment being made to his overall cap hit, because it is quite high for a player, especially down the stretch for the Chiefs. When they did kind of need that offensive spark, it wasn't coming for the first time in his career. It wasn't coming from Kelce. It wasn't 87 that was the guy providing that spark. And I'm sure the Eagles and the Bills and these teams were focusing on slowing him down a little bit, but it wasn't like it was 3 years ago where teams were selling out to stop him and making other guys beat them. And the Chiefs were still like, oh, it's third down. Let's draw up a play for our rookie wide receiver instead of Travis Kelce, more often than not. And so I do think that like going into next year, the 19, I think it is $1 million cap hit is a little rich without it being adjusted. And I just, I think you just got to make the move. You got to have that conversation with them and let them know. And then more than that, Patrick Mahomes, because he's part of this problem, and Andy Reid and Matt Nagy, whoever's designing the offense, have to come to terms with they can't rely on him to be the get out of jail free card anymore, right? It just doesn't work. So more so than even just what the money looks like, how the offense is structured, if he's back, he has to 100% be part of the offense, not the ace up the sleeve of the offense that he's been throughout his entire career, which means the offense just has to undergo quite a few changes. And listening to some of Andy Reid's like interviews that he's done while in Indianapolis, just talking about looking back on the Super Bowl, mourning it, learning from it, I do think that he understands that things do have to change, and maybe that's part of it. We'd have to see, but just they have changes, whether if Kelce comes back or doesn't, to this offense, and he's kind of the first step they got to figure out.
And I think there's a chance that the Chiefs need to lean on Travis Kelce a little bit heavier during the start of the season, just because of Rashee Rice's potential situation. And then, maybe you can wean yourself off a little bit until the postseason, right? But like I do think like the Chiefs are going to need him in maybe a decent capacity while Rashid Rice is absent whenever he is absent. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Thanks, everybody, hanging out with us on a Matter Day. We were going through a few of the Chiefs rumors really quick. Just a quick thought from you guys. There hasn't been a ton of buzz about Nick Bolton to this point. You really haven't heard much of anything about his market. No news might be good news, I think, for the Chiefs, Hamilton.
Yeah, you never know. It's hard this year, like as Maddie alluded to, trying to decipher what to believe and what to read into, a guy not being talked about or a guy being talked about. But obviously the Trey Smith news has major bearing on Bolton's situation. I think it's going to be hard to keep both of those guys. But yeah, it really is hard to judge right now. The quiet, it's eerily quiet on the Bolton front right now, and it's hard to know exactly what to read into that. It could mean, hey, there's nothing close and he's going to hit the open market. It could mean they're working on something and they want to keep everything under wraps. So it's hard to figure out. But yeah, if the Trey Smith report is true, I think that means Bolton, it's less likely that Bolton's coming back.
Two things for me that I find interesting. Well, not interesting. First of all, Bolton's a pretty quiet person, even not just on the field or anything like that, but outside of the field, we didn't hear anything about him making contract demands last year. When he gets up on the podium, it is 100% coach speak 100% of the time. He isn't a guy that's overly flashy about it. And I don't know who represents him, but I just wonder if, an agency that he is signed with or whoever it is kind of goes about it the way that he acts. And so maybe you just won't hear much about his situation until it's done. I did find it semi-interesting that Brett Veach in multiple different interviews or his presser has talked about, as Kent said, that it's a strong defensive class starting, and Brett Veach has mentioned defensive line, as everybody has said, it's a strong defensive line class. He's mentioned cornerback, but he has definitely made sure to throw linebacker in there as well. And I don't think that one's as common knowledge to the national media or to when you hear other people talk about this class, even just us looking over. It's not a bad linebacker class, but it's pretty average. And just Brett Veach has made it a point twice now, at least twice, to mention hey, I think this linebacker class is pretty good. So that did stick with me a little bit. And again, lying season, so don't put too much stock into it. I just think it's interesting that he has slipped in specifically linebacker, almost as a reaction to the question after he has said it's a strong defensive class.
I also find it a little bit interesting that, not a ton interesting, but I mean, the Chiefs did say, and Veach did say, that Trey Smith and re-signing Trey Smith is their number one priority in the offseason as far as, or looking at, the Trey Smith situation is their number one priority, which I think makes sense. But, there wasn't a ton of talk about Bolton or Reed really at the podium either. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where both of those markets sit. Bolton's more than Reed, because I think Bolton's back. I'm just curious to see what the number is more than anything.
According to the KCSN research team, the plot thickens. Nick Bolton and Trey Smith allegedly have the same agent, according to the KCSN research department, aka boots on the ground in Indianapolis, in here via hotspot. So
Jimmy Sexton with
yes.
CAA allegedly.
Yep.
The streets of Indianapolis are saying, or the hotel rooms of Indianapolis. And so I do think that throws a little bit of a wrinkle, right? If you're the Chiefs and you are going to be talking to any agent, but especially if two players that are considered your highest priority free agents are have the same agent, you can't talk about one without talking about the other there. So, maybe food for thought when they go out there and say, we want to bring back Trey Smith and Nick Bolton. That could be a little bit of gamesmanship to, just say hey, we're doing, not doing you a solid, but we don't want to upset an agent of one of these guys that we're trying to sign by only singling out one guy.
All right, let's get into some of these combine workout that are going to be coming up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I can't wait. This is the Underwear Olympics. Is Maddie Lane's
got my tights on right now and everything.
Yikes. I will say one of Maddie Lane's best traits. Maybe his only best trait.
This is true.
He knows where I'm going with this. He is an incredible judgment of height, weight. Incredibly impressive. So like we'll drive home from the Shrine Bowl practices, and I'll just like I'll get the roster out, and I'll just start giving him players. Like, all right, Maddie, what's this guy? And he's plus or minus like 3 pounds. Like he would make
Wow.
a killing at Worlds of Fun. Like he
Listen,
would make,
Worlds of Fun.
he'd make an
I was even
absolute
more accurate.
killing.
I was more accurate when they used to do weigh-ins too. Like, when you have to see them in shells and stuff, like you can get a good idea, but it's a little difficult sometimes after the day one of the practice when they had to actually strip down and walk out there on the stage. I was spot on then. We could see everything, as Gardner Minshew made it very clear for everybody.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, no, I don't think you were judging that. I hope not. Anyways,
4 socks.
I think there's plenty of like little interesting storylines here. I think there's little, I think there's just, I think little mini storylines that might help kind of the evaluation process for a lot of these players, right? And it can be checking boxes. It can be who's going to blow up the combine. There's all kinds of little mini storylines here and players that we're going to all be paying attention to. So we thought we might just go through some of the players that we're going to be watching during the combine weekend. Hamilton, give me somebody off the top for us that you're going to be paying attention to during the combine process.
Yeah, so obviously left tackle's the biggest storyline here. And, I know you guys have said you're not in love with this offensive line class, but there are a few interesting options
For sure.
on the board. And looking at Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft that just came out, Josh Connerly from Oregon is one of the top names out there. He has him going there. And yeah, I was watching his tape today, and he held his own against Abdul Carter. Like that was the biggest test he got all year, and wasn't overly impressive, but held his own. He battled. I love how he pulls. He gets out in space. He moves really, really well. I saw in pass pro he gets a little lungy at times. He's he gets nervous and lunges, and his technique goes out the window. But there's some things there to work with. I was curious, your guys' opinion of him, and I'm interested to see what the arm length is there, because I think that's part of the issue with the lunging is, guys that have a reach advantage, he kind of just again abandons his technique and just starts lunging at him.
Yeah, I think that Connerly's going to look pretty good in this environment. He's a guy that's lighter on his feet. He has good footwork. I think he's going to be a pretty good athlete. So the testing is going to be pretty solid. I think when you get him out there to do a lot of the drills, especially the drills, like when they do the little like back and forth chase the rabbit drill, things like that, I think he's going to look pretty good on a lot of those. So he's going to be impressive coming out of this. I don't think he has great length, but I don't think there's a question if he's going to hit like the NFL's 33-inch, benchmark. I think he's got that covered, but I don't know. The Chiefs are heavy preference on longer armed offensive tackles. 34 inches plus is their heavy preference for their offensive tackles. I don't know if he's going to get there. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I think he's going to come out of this looking pretty good. I don't think the combine can change my opinion on him. My concerns with him are a little bit more that he struggles a little bit to handle power. And like some of that is your lunging. And I think that's maybe where the lunging is he wants to make sure he gets that first contact because he doesn't trust his anchor when guys get hands on him first. And then sometimes I do think that he'll stop his feet and then he's not the best at blocking outside of his frame. And so I just don't know if those kind of things are going to show up at the combine, but like, I do think he's going to put on a good performance and probably kind of cement himself into the first round.
Lane, give me somebody that you are looking forward to watching here, or somebody that you're paying attention to during the NFL Combine. Matthew Lane.
There you go. Because I wasn't going to talk. I wrote an entire article about 5 players that I think that Chiefs fans should watch at the KCSN Substacks. You can go to kcsn.substack.com to see all 5 guys. Just quickly, the first one on there was for the same reason as Hamilton talked about, left tackle. Hey, what's Josh Simmons' knee looking like? What are those medicals looking like for that knee over there? Is it a quad tendon tear, or was it just a quad tendon injury, or a patella injury and not a tear to the quad tendon? Like there's a lot of ambiguousness going on with his knee injury. So I just wonder what it is. He won't test, but hopefully we get, as the media, we get some like idea of what his injury is, because I think if they're outside of Will Campbell, who's going to be long gone before the Chiefs get a chance to draft, I think he's like the surest fire next guy that can start at left tackle in the NFL. And if you have to maybe make a trade up, you have to know he's healthy. So he's a guy I'm intrigued by coming in there. And then like just next, and this is selfishly, the wide receivers in this class, there's a couple bigger wide receivers this year. It's not like the fastest group. It's a lot of bigger guys. Do any of these bigger X body typed wide receivers kind of separate themselves? Do any of them just kind of move a little bit differently? We all saw last year, they go out there and Brian Thomas Jr. runs and just looks super fluid during some of his routes compared to guys that are a lot smaller than him. And you're just like, oh, that's why people really like him. And I don't think there's a Brian Thomas Jr., but can a Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State? Can Trey Harris out of Ole Miss? Can any of these bigger bodied wide receivers kind of pop during some of these drills to really get attention and start climbing up a weaker wide receiver draft class?
You were looking for ambiguity.
No.
Was the word you were trying to find, not ambiguous.
Incorrect. I like my word better.
Yeah, we know you always are going to like your word better. Hamilton, why don't you throw another one at us? Give me somebody else that you're paying attention to during this.
Well, first, I just want to comment on Josh Simmons. I think that's a really intriguing prospect for the Chiefs because going through his tape, I mean, again, if it's between him, assuming he's healthy, if it's between him and Connerly, Simmons' tape really jumped out to me. I think just how explosive he was out of his stance. He's agile, and he's a finisher. That's the thing I didn't really see from Connerly as much. Like, it was, he's doing his job and doing well, but there wasn't that nastiness to him. And Simmons definitely has that. He wants to bury people. I think that was sometimes to his detriment. When he did whiff and when he did miss, he was being overly aggressive. But I'll take that. You can always rein that in. You can't put that dog in a guy, and Simmons definitely has that. So the reports are, the latest that I was saying was that he should be fully ready for training camp. Again, that's probably coming from his agents. So, we'll get a much better gauge. Hopefully he does the medical testing at the combine and all that, and we can get a better gauge, as Maddie said. But he's one who, this is the case where maybe the injury works in the Chiefs' favor, because if there are teams that have questions, if he was fully healthy and testing at the combine, I think he would be, long gone by the time the Chiefs get to pick. The injury could work in their favor and have him slide down the board a little bit to striking distance for a trade up.
I will say, I will say something about Simmons too. Like, I was talking to someone the other day, and like, I have a hard time believing that if the medicals are okay, that Joshua Simmons is going to fall in striking distance. I think he could be OT1, depending on what you call Will Campbell, the LSU offensive lineman. So I don't know if he's falling into striking distance for the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are having to squint a little bit harder at the medicals.
Yeah,
personally,
yeah,
because like you're right, the tape is just that.
It's good. So good.
He's so good.
Yeah, he's one of the few like in the Chiefs range I watch. I just loved the tape, and yeah,
I think it's going to be a fascinating risk reward approach because like I just don't see the tape that he's put on allowing him to fall. And I think it's just like how big of a risk on the medicals if he's falling into a range that you feel comfortable with, because like, I think that's the only chance he falls, especially like, I mean, everyone's going to be one offensive lineman too. All right, Hamilton, give me another one.
All right. So one position, Maddie, you brought it up last week. The Chiefs always love to take a peek at edge rushers and the issues getting pressure with 4 this year. And there's some interesting names at the end of the first round, and they're controversial names, but they're interesting. And the first one I'll bring up, Shamar Stewart. The lack of production was disturbing, to say the least. It doesn't match what you saw at the Senior Bowl. It doesn't match the athletic profile. His only full sack last year came when he was matched up on a guard against Bowling Green. I went through to see, okay, where was the sack? And that was it. Yeah. So it's puzzling to think, but when you watch him, his technique is a mess. He's abandoning his guy. Like, he's not disciplined at all, which probably has a lot to do with it. But you see the explosion, you see the athleticism. And again, any edge rusher that's making to the end of the first round, they're going to have questions. They're going to have issues. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see how he tests, because he's the type of player that can test his way up the board, because he looks the part physically. looks the part. So those are the type of guys that can make a big name for themselves at the combine. Chop Robinson, the production wasn't that bad, but Chop Robinson didn't have great production either. But you saw the athleticism was off the charts, and they obviously saw had a really good rookie year for the Dolphins. So he's an interesting one today.
Yeah, he's a guy. He's kind of built a lot like Trevon Walker was for Georgia coming out. He goes first overall. I don't think Stewart is going to get up to that level, and nor do I think he's going to test quite that freaky. But he can get close to that, right? Like he can get somewhere in the ballpark, and I think he's a guy that could really fly up the draft board because of that. We also saw Odafe Oweh had like very minimal college production, goes in the first round. Like there's been some guys lately that have done that. It's because they do have some of those rare athletic traits. So yeah, he's one to keep an eye on. And actually, this is the edge position in general. The combine's huge for the Chiefs because as I've written about every single year of the KCSN draft guide, Steve Spagnuolo does not like small defensive ends. He's got his preferred thresholds. He wants these guys that are 260 plus pounds, arms over 33 inches. He would like them to be 6'3" or taller. Now, there's been some wiggle room, especially since he's been in Kansas City. You're allowed to miss one or two, one of those or be kind of close to it. But he's been pretty spot on with a lot of that. He likes bigger edge rushers. So you start looking down these edge rushers and you see a bunch of guys coming in the 240s. You might really like their tape, but I mean, that's just very, very uncommon for the Chiefs to spend kind of draft capital on, especially early in the draft. Like a day 3 pick, yeah, sure. Maybe you get a BJ Thompson in there and see if he can develop into something. But in terms of like valuable draft assets, I mean, they don't like to veer too far away from their thresholds at all there. So that's the whole combine is good for like the entire edge position, whether it's somebody climbing up the draft board or just looking for a, later day 2 guy.
Well, and I mean, we think you see like Joshua Uche. I think the Chiefs tried to get a little juice up the arc, and he wound up being a healthy scratch for like 5 weeks, or even more during the season. During the
and we talked about they kind of liked him coming out, but like whoever said they didn't like him as an off ball either coming out, right? Like whoever said that it was like 100% a defensive end is what like they always saw him as. Like I said, that's what they played him at. But like, remember after being inactive for a couple weeks, like there was all of a sudden like, hey, he might be an off-ball linebacker for them. It like sounded like that's the way he was trending. So like maybe they even just considered him an off-ball and not a true defensive end.
Well, then they played him at off-ball linebacker in that game against the Broncos in Week 18, which is just like, I mean, it's nuts. I'm fascinated to see the arm length on Donovan Jackson, the offensive lineman out of Ohio State. I don't think we've gotten verified numbers on him recently. I know some people have said that he's got really long arms. I'd love to find out if that's real and how real that is once we get to the NFL Combine. Because I mean, for one thing, Andy Reid does have a history of liking arm length at tackle. Like that is one of the things, especially if you're a college prospect, they do typically prefer longer arms. Like I think they've made some exceptions more recently, and maybe honestly some of these exceptions that we're talking about here might be just because it's situationally where they're at picking in the 30s all the time. They've got to get a little bit more thoughtful and creative with what they want. But we've talked about Donovan Jackson a little bit here over the last couple weeks, and like he's definitely a guy that's of intrigue. And if you're talking about someone that might be able to be in striking distance for the Chiefs, we're talking a guy that, played guard primarily at Ohio State. And so there's not as much tackle tape, even though the tackle tape is pretty good. So maybe they're able to get him out of value at the end of round 1 if they're looking to address the tackle position there. All right, Hamilton, give me somebody else that you're paying attention to in this combine workout weekend.
Yeah, so sticking with the edge rushers, this guy, as Maddie explained, like doesn't really fit the profile for what the Chiefs usually want or really this system, but he's an interesting name because he's a freak athlete and he has the frame that maybe he can add some bulk. But James Pierce, there's also reports that off the field stuff and concerns about his attitude may make him slide into the second round, which screams Kansas City Chief to me. If they can get him at a value. So, but no, he's going to be an interesting player to watch because he's so explosive and he's an absolute animal out there. But yeah, it's hard to see somebody coming in the 240s and fitting the Spags profile, as you said, Matty.
Well, thankfully, I think he is going to have like longish arms, and he has like he has the frame, like you said. He's going to have the length.
Yeah.
He's going to have the height. So if he can, as long as he can get over 250, like they'll still at least like give him a chance, right? But you want to come in if he comes in like low 240s, pack your bags and go elsewhere, buddy. I'm going to go to the tight end room. It's a good tight end class. It's a very good tight end, just overall draft. And you got to kind of separate some of these guys. Is it Loveland? Is it Warren at the top? How does the second tier of these tight ends falter out? Who do you love out of like those day 3 guys? Well, and people overreact every year to the combine, and every year people warn you not to. If there's one position to overreact to at the combine, it's tight ends. You want a tight end that can run a fast 40 time and has a good 10-yard split. It's like it is the one position that has a test that is like near 50% like correlation. Like the rate is incredibly high for tight ends and 40 time. And I think it just simply says it's a really hard position to play. The whole point is to be a mismatch problem. And to do that, you have to be an athlete. You have to be a better athlete than the players across them, bigger than safeties, more athletic than linebackers. So which of these tight ends test like freaks? Which ones test like average tight ends? And like, I think that kind of busts up the Loveland Warren debate, whether you like Mason Taylor or Elijah Arroyo, who's actually not going to test, sadly, Harold Fan, and just like however you want to stack all these guys up. I think the combine does tell you a lot about kind of maybe how you can sort your specific tiers of tight ends.
We're unfortunately, sorry.
No, you go.
I was going to say, unfortunately, we're not going to get to see Loveland. He's another one we're hearing he's probably going to be ready for training camp. But it's also another interesting, like maybe the Chiefs can take advantage of him not having the testing numbers, and he slides down the board a little bit more because he's such a fun player to watch. And I think he is a chess piece. Like he's not just a tight end. I mean, seeing the way that they put him in motion and line him up in every conceivable spot, really fun to watch. And we could potentially see him slide because of the injury. And it's fun because like you're right, Ken, about like the medicals causing guys to slide if they don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. But we saw it with Cooper DeJean last year, like with him being hurt and not being able to like it did cause him to slide. I don't think there's any way he doesn't go in the first round if he is fully healthy for the combine. Even like a Bobby Wagner, like didn't get to work out at the combine, goes in the second round. Like there have been guys over the years that like you look back and like there's nothing on the tape that would tell you anything other than this guy's the first round pick. And just because they don't work out the combine, it's like they get forgotten about a little bit. It's weird.
I missed that Loveland wasn't able to work out. So interesting. Good to know.
Well, we talked about like Cooper DeJean's arm length, and they were long enough to make that interception in the Super Bowl. And like, hey, Trent McDuffie's arms were long enough to be one of the best cornerbacks in football, and the Chiefs got him in the 20s. Maddie, I am going to remember next time you slander Theo Johnson because that 10-yard split and that 40-yard dash was pretty nice for him. Just saying.
But anything that comes out of Penn State athletes is fake. That you can't trust Penn State athletes too.
Theo was having a good rookie year.
They spent all of the Chiefs' budget on their weight room and training facility at Penn State so that they can actually do something because the Chiefs apparently don't put money into those things, according to the NFLPA report card. Penn State players are always going to test like freaks. Yes, I'm kind of joking that it doesn't matter, but also there are certain schools that are just going to get people more ready for the combine. And Penn State right now is kind of at the top.
The best. They're the go to that. All right. One more thing for me, just one other thing I'm kind of paying attention to in this NFL combine, the weigh-ins for the linebacking class. Because I think this is a very unique linebacking group. I think, when Brett Veach talked about, these linebackers, if the Chiefs are moving on from Nick Bolton, this mid-round group of linebackers actually, I think, pairs and lines up pretty well with what the Chiefs might need, in their linebacking room. If they wanted to get a Mike linebacker to play in that defense, an earlier down linebacker, I think there's some pretty good early down backers in this class. There's some good, smart players. But one thing I'm paying attention to is like there are a lot of light linebackers in this class too. There's a lot of sub 230 guys or guys that look like they could potentially come in below 230 pounds at the linebacker position. And I don't know if that's going to be a deal breaker or not for Spags, but I have a feeling that there's a chance for some of these guys that it's going to be a little bit too light for his preference, at the linebacker spot. So I'm fascinated to see what some of these linebackers weigh in at, because I think the Chiefs would prefer some of these guys to be just a little bit bigger. Maddie, you look like you're itching to say something before I go to break.
No, I was just talking, with Chandler over here in the chat about Chris Paul being a day one starting Mike, and I just wanted to clarify that he is going by Pooh Paul, not Chris Paul.
Good football player is Pooh Paul. We're gonna take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
All right, here's the deal. Hamilton said he wanted to throw some questions at us here, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. So I'm going to give Hammy the floor for the first edition of Hammy's Burning Questions. I don't even know what this is going to look like, but let's find out.
This is great.
All right. First thing I wanted to know from you guys. So, candidly, for everybody out there, like as I said at the beginning, like I'm playing catch up right now. Like I'm cramming, I'm studying, I'm watching all these prospects. But Maddie and Kent have been at this all year. They watched every single college football game. They watch every single prospect. So I wanted to get, just pick their brain a little bit here. So first question for you guys, what do you think is the deepest position in this draft?
Ooh, that is a good
Deepest.
one. So you have one? Go, Maddie.
Oh yeah, defensive tackle. I think when you start talking about like depth of draft classes, I still think you have to start a little bit at the top because if you don't have a top end, that means you have to push people up to the top, and that takes away from the depth. You can't just skip a tier and just start loading in a bunch of tier 3 guys and say that's depth. No, that just means that there's not anybody at the top. So I think defensive tackle has some elite players at the top, but if you kind of start breaking this down into tiers, first half of the first round, back half of the first round, top 50, top 75, top 100, you're getting multiple players at defensive tackle position all the way into day 3. And then you even get into guys at day 3. Like I think you're getting handfuls of players that will be able to, have an impact for a team. So like just this past week, like I got go like a second pass through Oregon to watch another round of Derek Harmon. And I'm like, oh wait, Jamari Caldwell, the other defensive tackle here that transferred from Houston, this guy's also pretty good. And so now I'm back on a second pass and I'm finding another guy that I think is pretty good. So it's just, I think defensive tackle kind of has this one. I don't think it's particularly close, but I am intrigued to hear if Kent has a rebuttal for this.
Well, I think you're right, but I also would say we've got 14 third rounder higher grades at edge right now. So I think that's a pretty good group as well. The defensive line in general is pretty good, but I do think that there is some intriguing edge players as well. And some that fit the Chiefs candidly, but some of these guys, maybe a little bit more scheme specific than others, but I do think there's an interesting group of middle class edge players that could be of interest to the Chiefs. Also, I think running back too, as well. Maddie, your edges, right? In the guy,
edges and running backs.
Yeah, of course, Maddie is. Maddie's getting the two deepest, two of the deepest positions. I think running backs very good as well. I think there's some very interesting, contributors that, could be really good for the Chiefs in the day 2, day 3 range. I think there's going to be surplus value at some point for the Chiefs in the running back class. I think we got 15 grades at the running back spot right now in the top 4 rounds. I think we've got 15 in the top 4 rounds right now. So, and they're I'll be honest with you, a couple of Maddie's 5th round grades, I'm going to be fighting them about. So I even like the 5th round grades. Some of these 5th round players that Maddie has in this group too. So, I think running back's another one.
Yeah, that's interesting because you think the allure at 31, if Travion Henderson is there, let's say, it has to be pretty strong. But knowing that there's that depth there too, you wonder how that factors in. And that leads me to my next question. So for each of you guys, who within reason, obviously Abdul Carter is not going to be there. Within reason, who's the player at 31 that you just, regardless of position, you're if he's there, I have to take him?
Oh, it's easy for me now, especially now that I know that he's not going to be able to participate at the Combine or a Pro Day. If Colston Loveland happens to fall to 31, got to make that pick if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he would have already been there, but I didn't think it was realistic. It still seems unlikely, but just with that bit of news, people aren't going to get I mean, you'll get official measurements, but there's going to be a little bit of uncertainty with the recovery time. I think my quick Google search says his surgeon sent a letter to every team saying he'll be fine, but he's on the list. Outside of him, so that's like the maybe it's possible perfect pick to me is Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. The pick right now that I am the most comfortable with, that I think is the most likely, so like combining kind of both, is Donovan Jackson, offensive lineman out of Ohio State. I think he'll play tackle if the Chiefs draft him. I think he can play tackle in the NFL. Just the way he played tackle when he filled in for Josh Simmons when he got hurt, that looked like the way I think the Chiefs want their tackles to play. Has the size, the length, strong anchor. I think he's a guy that I feel very comfortable with taking at pick 31, especially if you really want to try to shore up that left tackle spot.
I'm going to read between the tea leaves a little bit here. It sounds like the wide receiver group is being devalued. Maybe not devalued, but maybe just not as highly thought of as, you might have thought a month ago. If Luther Burden's there at 31, I don't know, man. I'm going to have a hard time not looking hard at that one. Like, this a joke a while back. I think during the season, I was like, this lack of production in 2024, maybe if it pushes him into a range that the Chiefs can take him, like, I'd absolutely consider it. And like me and Maddie joke, it's like the all slot receiver offense. That's exactly how Andy Reid likes it. But you want to talk about another guy that can kind of make plays. You give him the ball and manufactured touches, let him do stuff. I think there's more receiver there than maybe he got a chance to show at Missouri his last year. But just go back and look at 2023. And look at what he did there. I don't think you would have been talking about him as a potential late first round pick, but there seems to be some buzz. I saw there's a high level mock recently that didn't even have him in the first round. So if the Chiefs are able to get all of their other holes filled, like, I don't know, Luther Burden out of Missouri, I think I'd pull the trigger on that one.
I don't know how, but I knew Ken was going to pick a receiver with that question. I knew it. I knew there was going to be somebody.
Maddie did double dip, and like Donovan Jackson's like we're hot to trot on Donovan Jackson like in every episode. Like that, just from us, like logically, it makes too much sense. Like it's like, hey, good tackle tape, long arms, might fall because he didn't play tackle more than 4 weeks. Or 5, no, it was more than that. It was like 6 or 7 actually when it was all said and done, right?
Yep.
But that neither here nor there. Like that's a way you can try to figure tackle out potentially and get yourself a good swing, maybe at a value back like he's the one that I think we're pretty on right now. So he would have been in the other one.
Nice. All right, last question for you guys. Who's the prospect that you're watching that you're just like, how the hell is this guy not getting more attention, and we need to be talking about this guy more?
Ooh.
Okay. If anyone jumps out to you, can't go ahead and get in there because you're still looking too. I'm trying to think. Okay, so I should. Oh, okay. You can filibuster for us. That'd be great.
Do you have one?
No, it's just I'll talk right now because I know it's a hard question.
Well, first off, Maddie,
out of the air, maybe I should have given you guys a heads up, but yeah.
Maddie and I are in the same sheet right now, and he just completely killed my flow by sorting the sheet by position instead of grade right now, and so he's made it even worse for me right now. I hate you. Anyways, awesome. I have one, but we'll see.
There's one, but I lost him.
No, if you need to if you had something you really needed to say, if you were just buying us time, I'm ready.
Go for it. Nah, I was buying you time.
Walter Nolan seems to not be getting like top 20, top 15 love. And the tape I've seen, actually, I think me and Maddie watched Walter Nolan together. I was very impressed with him. I mean, this is like, I'm stunned that a guy of his ability, especially like he has the pedigree as a 5-star prospect. He's got a great athletic profile. He's dense. He's physical, disruptive pass rusher. And like, he really can get into a gap. He was just abusing SEC guards. I think I think some people have said like the tape has been up and down for him. There's been some hot and cold to his motor, but like the games I've seen, man, he was an absolute force. And you're talking about a disruptive interior rusher. Walter Nolan, I think, is up there with just about anyone. And so like I think there's been some maturity concerns, I think, with Walter Nolan, but man, if he's down there, if he falls to 31, like I think the talent and the ability and even the tape is warranted well above where pick 31 is. So like Walter Nolan's a guy I think probably deserves to be looked at in a different regard than what he is right now.
Okay. I got a few guys now. I'll go through them quick though. CJ West, defensive tackle from Indiana. He went down to the Shrine Bowl. I was kind of like, I'm watching him getting ready for that. I thought he was really good. You go back and watch him versus best competitions like Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, he's dominating that game for India, like on the defensive side of the ball, versus two very good offenses. So, and then at the Shrine Bowl, he was kind of unblockable during a lot of the drills during practice. So he's a guy I'm surprised hasn't gotten a little bit more buzz, but it's a strong defensive tackle class. So that's probably a reason why. A little bit quicker. Jaden Higgins, wide receiver from Iowa State. Bigger guy. I mean, it's one of the guys I mentioned earlier. Big guy. If he tests well, like I feel like he's entering himself into the top end of these wide receivers. And I don't think anybody's really mentioning him there, but his production, his size profile, and if you add on good testing for that, I think that kind of sneaks in. And then finally, Andrew Makuba, safety out of Texas. I don't know. He's right up there with Xavier Watts to me for the best, just like pure free safety in this class. If you want a guy that shows the most range, has the coverage instincts. And again, he just doesn't seem to be getting that same kind of buzz that Watts does going into the process.
I got a couple more.
Oh yeah. Look who's following suit now, buddy.
I'll go quickly. I watched Jalen Royals, the Utah State wide receiver, recently, and I came away very impressed with him. Like well built. I'm curious to see what he weighs, but like had runaway speed.
212.
Like 212, like we'll see what he really weighs, but like 212, even if he's playing at 212 at Utah State, like
he's telling you,
runaway speed, like legit burst. Very impressed like with his route running. He was inside outside guy, tough after the catch, tough at the catch point. Like there's a lot to like about Jalen Royals. And then also where is he? Elijah Roberts at SMU is a defensive end. He weighed 6'3", 290 pounds at the East West Shrine Bowl. Massive human, but like they put him on the edge and let him like rush the passer off the edge, and he was difficult to block. Like he had a fantastic Shrine Bowl. This is an inside outside versatility guy, and I don't think he has to be reduced inside. Like I do think like if he's a Chief, like the Chiefs will play him at edge on base downs and he'll do just fine. Like this is a freaky athletic profile, and I think he did himself some favors at the Shrine Bowl this year. I really like him. I think Maddie's got like a round 4 on him. I think that's about right, but good value. Yeah.
That sounds like the type of player Spags loves too, going through his history.
He fits great. So that was it, Matt. That was it, Hamilton.
Yeah, those are my big 3 questions for you guys. We'll pick on more. We got a lot of shows coming up before the draft.
Oh, so this is what we should do every week.
Yeah.
There should be a Hammy's burning question segment every single week, and he just lobs a couple questions. It can be one question even. It just lobs a couple questions that he wants to know if he,
I think that's a great idea.
I like this idea.
This will be fun. We'll do Hammy's burning questions during the next couple of months. Okay. Well, I was looking at a little bit and like trying to find some of the, props that show up, during the NFL Combine, because like I think there's some interesting ones. I think there's some interesting, there's some interesting props out there, and like the ones that we really have right now are built around the 40-yard dash, and like that's typically like the biggest ones when you're looking at these. But I thought we'd maybe just look at a couple, and I shared some of these with you, with the guys. You can find these on FanDuel, which is where Maddie Hamilton's employed. Help feed Hamilton's cats.
Yeah, there you go.
But we'll start with the running back room. So there's some odds out there for the fastest 40-yard dash. Hamilton, any of those players and their odds intriguing to you in the running back room?
I mean, this is going to be an interesting one to see because Travion Henderson is the one that stands out to me. I mean, we saw some of the on-field explosiveness. I don't know if he's going to test better than a Dylan Sampson or a Jaden Blue, but that's the 40 I'm most looking forward to seeing, I think, because just to see how that on-field speed translates, because college football playoff look no further than that from seeing the breakaway type of speed that he has. So that's definitely one I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
Well, he's plus 430 there, and he ran away from Oregon. And like, I mean, he's
Yeah.
got the third best odds. Like, I like the swing. I get it.
I like that one.
What
Yeah.
do you got? What do you got, Maddie?
So looking at the odds, I'm going to break it down. I'm not just taking like a bet here. I hope that's okay with you, Kent. Dylan Sampson's got the best odds, running back out of Tennessee. And I get it. He's very fast when he does get a runway. I don't know if I saw like fastest 40 time when I watched him play, but like I do get it. And if you really dig in and go back, he had the best 100 time out of like all the running backs coming out of high school heading into it. But he's also looks like, as I do my deep dive here, that he's put on about 20 pounds since he was in high school. Whereas somebody like Jadon Blue, who had a little bit slower 100 time, has not put on any weight since he hit that. So you just that extra 20 pounds, is he going to be a little bit faster, a little bit slower for Dylan Sampson? So I'm going Jadon Blue. I just watching, he right up there with Henderson looks the most explosive by the eye test to me. These two guys run away from Power 5 defenders at a rate that you don't typically see. I think Blue might have him just slightly edged out because I think he has like a longer stride, a little bit longer stride length. And when you're not dealing with having to avoid contact, I think that matters a bit.
Yeah, I think Jaden Blue's an interesting, and I think he's plus 750. I think there's a sleeper in here, Marcus Yarns, out of Delaware. Like, he's a smaller running back, but like if you go watch the tape there, like he's got pretty good long speed. He's able to run away from guys, and he's got really good burst. So like I'm fascinated. Like he's a lighter running back. Like this is gonna Yarns will probably weigh under 190 pounds, I would imagine, when he's at the combine this week. And so he's got good speed on tape. So like I think he's another one. He's like plus 3,700. Like I think that's a fun little one there. All right, we're looking at defensive backs. And this is safeties and cornerbacks, and you're talking about the fastest 40-yard dash for them. Give me a name, Hamilton, that you're interested in.
Hold on, let me pull up map. Close. Maddie, if you want to go first, sorry.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
No, there was a couple names in here that really intrigued me. I don't want to rely entirely on like the high school 100-meter times, although I think it's a good place to start. So I'm going to go with Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky. I think there's a few times where he's had to really open up to chase guys down over the past 2 seasons. And I think you see a guy that kind of moves at a different speed, being a non-super big corner. He's pretty average size, right there under 6 feet tall, around a little like 190-ish pounds. Like that's the kind of body type that I expect to really compete for this. Got enough muscle mass to be explosive, but you're not so heavy that it's a little bit slower foot turnover. So give me Hairston, I think, on this one, branching away a little bit from the 100-meter high school time path.
Yeah, anything?
Nice. Sorry, I got the odds up now. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Yeah. I mean, Darian Porter plus 220. He is the favorite there. That's, I know I don't like going chalk with these, but I mean, looking at his speed, I watched a little bit of him today. He looks like a track star out there the way that he runs. So I don't know, just from watching his film today, again, I haven't watched it as deep into the class, but watching him is hard to believe that there are much faster human beings out there.
He has a rundown of Ashton Genty from the opposite side of the field where like he doesn't just like catch him, he like cuts him off. It's pretty crazy.
No,
Yeah.
I actually think this is a great spot to go chalk here, if I'm being honest with you, dude.
Ooh,
like I think
I'll
Darian
take the field.
I think Darian Porter is like a great candidate there.
Yes.
I don't know if Nick Emanwari will flat out win this thing. And I think he's got a little bit of inflated odds, I think, just because everyone knows him to be a freak. But I cannot wait to watch this guy open up and run here this weekend, because like he's fun to watch. He's really fun to watch.
Kind of long shot. Quincy Riley, cornerback out of Louisville, is like plus 2,500. Again, if you were to go with the 100-meter time, he is the cornerback or the defensive back that had the fastest 100-meter time coming out of high school. So you just want to throw something at the wall if it's good odds. He might be worth it.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a bad idea either. I almost went with him as well. Actually, okay, we're looking at wide receiver. So there is someone with minus odds.
This is a 2-horse race. Let's be very real. This is a 2-horse race.
I think this is a two-horse race. Arian Smith, the wide receiver out of Georgia, and Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver out of Texas. It seems like those two players are very heavily favored. So Hamilton, if I said Smith and Bond are the field, What are you taking?
Oh, I'm taking Smith and Bond. I was looking up Aaron Smith, 10.1 in the 100 meters. And Isaiah Bond was clocked at over 22 miles
It's
per hour,
ridiculous.
which I think was the first college football player ever to hit that, since they've been tracking that. So, yeah, I'm definitely going them. I think it's going to be one of those two.
Yeah, I mean, like I was trying to sit here and guess and like try to come up with something that could be, maybe like a long shot that would surprise us. And I don't think I got it. Like even if you look at the next couple guys, that's like Jimmy Horn, Tez Johnson, some of these guys just. This is funny coming after Xavier Worthy just kind of breaks the record, but like I look at those guys, I don't think they quite have like the body type that I would expect to really push those two guys at the top, right? And so yeah, I would take those two guys. I don't even have honestly like a dark.
No,
horse
there's no
that I think is pretty
contrarian.
clear.
There's no contrarian take here. Jalen Royals, we just talked about him. He's like the 7th best odds, and like he's not going to break the record, but like I do think he's going to surprise some people with how fast he runs. And if that's the case, like I mean, if he really is 210 or whatever he's going to be, and he's flying around, look out. Like I think the buzz for Jalen Royals could get hot real quick if you're not careful. So. We thought we'd look at a couple of those. Just it's a good level setter for kind of getting an idea of what to expect here at the NFL Combine with all these odds. And I think there's a couple good values in that list. But you can go check the full list out at FanDuel. You can also check Matt Hamilton out at FanDuel up in Adams. They do tremendous work out there, and that is going to do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. This was a great Matter Day. I hope you all had a splendid Matter Day. Thank you all so much for listening. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
Keandre Lambert Smith, maybe sleeper.